Welcome to Compression, the quest to $100 million in just 1 year. Join me, your host, Logan Freeman, in this one-of-a-kind interactive podcast experience where I am on a quest to compress 3 years of achievement and production into 12 months. And no, the answer is not to just work harder. I'm bringing you not only ideas and concepts that are complete at the theoretical level, but they're also effective at the applied level. Look, guys, knowledge is not power. It is potential power. Knowledge plus massive strategic action equals power. We're talking about strategy, systems, accountability, all in real time. This is Compression.
Welcome back to another episode of the Compression Podcast. Myself, Jerome Myers, Logan Freeman are here today, and we're talking about the big idea. A lot of people have been asking, why are you guys spending time on this? Jerome, you already host 2 podcasts and help out with another. Why would you add another hour of recording to your week? And it's pretty simple for me. But before we dive into that, I want to jump in. And Logan, how have things been since the last time we jumped on?
Well, 2 weeks have been very fast because we had Thanksgiving in there. And we're right in the middle of starting December, which is always an interesting month for me because in one sense, real estate, most real estate brokers take and real estate investors take December off, you know. And on the other end, I see that as a huge opportunity to come in and just fill my pipeline and close deals. So I have 5 deals closing in the next 30 days between brokerage and acquisition. So with that, launching this new podcast and with all of the other things that we've got going on, it has been a short 2 weeks, Jerome. But one thing I will say is something that has been more inspiring, and I use that word because it's in spirit, not motivating. In spirit and inspiring is thinking about and getting this podcast going. I've really enjoyed not only just the ideation phase of it, but getting into the details. I used to not call myself a details guy, and I'm still not necessarily, but it's fun to get into the nuts and bolts a little bit, see how the sausage is made, as some folks would call it. And I've been a part of all of these different branding pieces and just back and forth with designers and strategy. It's been a lot of fun. And that's what's actually been most inspiring to me the last 2 weeks is, working with you, working with Ruben and his team, working with my wife on what should the logo be? What should this look like? What should the messaging be? And at the end of the day, you just got to get something out there, and that's what we're doing. But it's been really fun. I've actually found this to be more of a hobby than work. And so when people ask you why this is your third or fourth time, is I think that you become in flow. What I can't pronounce his name. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi calls flow, right? That book that's up on the shelf somewhere. So the last 2 weeks, man, have flown by. COVID has proposed some really interesting new challenges during the holidays, but also opportunities to spend more time with just my awesome little family here. So thanks for asking.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So look, you talked about a lot of things that are going to generate profit for you in the next month and a half.
Yep.
Why are you doing something that's non-revenue generating? Some people will see as a cost.
Yeah. I mean, look, I led a call with 17 real estate brokers yesterday, and we just got our December rankings. That is about 25% of my time, and I am number 1 on the rankings. And the rankings are income, okay? That's the number 1, gross commission income. And unfortunately, all of the brokers, not all, but most of the brokers on there think that picking up a phone call or phone, which is very, very important, but picking up a phone, meeting people, studying pro formas is going to somehow like generate opportunity. And Jeff Beals, who is my sales training coach on the real estate side of things, says that sales is manufacturing opportunity out of thin air. The only way that you do that, the only way that you become liked and trusted in your space is if you're known, omnipresence and known. And now the world has changed, man. This is the big idea. The world has changed this year and, well, the last couple of years, but it really changed this year. And no longer can we get together and meet over coffee necessarily and go to big networking events to get leads and to get deals. So the last 15 months, I've been throwing lines. I've been fishing, baby. I've been out there fishing. I've been throwing lines into the pond, throwing lines in LinkedIn, throwing lines in some podcasting, throwing lines in YouTube, throwing lines in writing content, throwing lines in these other things that I'm doing in Kansas City specifically. And I'm seeing what's hooking. And thank goodness, literally, thank goodness that I have been, because my business was not impacted from a top of the funnel standpoint when everybody else could not meet with people, go to networking events, and call on property owners, because I already had that stuff in place. And I already had a digital media company starting to be created. And so why am I doing another podcast? And where is this? Do you want to talk about that at all first before I jump into the why?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Stay in flow.
All right. So the why I got this created was in the ideation around this idea, or the inception. That's the right word. Man, one of my favorite things right now is juicing up my vocabulary and reducing the amount of filler words that I use, but also, so always keep me accountable there. Maybe I'll have Ruben count how many I say every single time. It's amazing when you do eliminate that, how more effective your communication is. And people are like, whoa, that guy doesn't, it's just like that. That guy doesn't use filler words. He knows what his message is. Anyways, I've been trying to juice up my vocabulary. And one tip that I'll put you guys up on game is there's an email every single morning that can be sent to your inbox that has word of the day. And there's probably multiple of those. Most of the time, the words are words I've never even heard of. But when you break one out like utopia or something like that, people are like, what? And then you actually know what it means and how to use it in a sentence. They're like, what? So communication has been really important. But the ideation and inception of this podcast came from my love of personal and professional development over the last 7 years. I went back and looked at my first blog entry back in 2015. So 6 years ago, I was writing on this WordPress blog because of one of my good buddies, Eric Huey, who has the Gen Y Leaders podcast now, which you may have been on. I don't know. If you have not been on, we got to get you on that.
Not yet.
Oh,
Not
man.
yet.
Prayers to Eric and Cassie. They had their baby and they're not home from the hospital yet. They will be soon. But if you're listening to this, I'm thinking about you and your family. So I put a post up on LinkedIn about these journals right here that I fill out. Okay. This is the High Performance Planner by Brendan Burchard. I've been doing his specific journal for about 2 years. I've been doing the journaling piece for about 7 years now. I started with Darren Hardy's Living Your Best Year Ever journal and then moved over to Brendan's 2 years ago. And I wanted people to know what it takes. I wanted people to know that this shit is not overnight. And
Whoa, wait. It didn't just happen? Like you snapped your fingers or you paid somebody some money and then the results magically showed up? You had to do something?
I'll tell you how much I've had to do this year.
Okay.
Yeah. So in that post, I put a picture of all 6 of the journals because you use one every 2 months. And I did some quick calculations and I just said, look, I've spent 522 hours before the sun has come up this year alone. And that translates into 22 days. And then I made a call to action. I said, I got 22 days on you. I got 22 days on my competitors. I got 22 days on the guys that try to take my spot. I got 22 days on the people that are trying to take my wife from me. I got 22 days on the Republicans and the Democrats, baby. I got them all. I got 22 days on all of them. And everybody's like, man, what do you mean you got 22 days? I'm like, what time did you get up? Oh, I got a text this morning from a guy. Can't get up early, man. I just can't get up early. I just don't know what to do. I was like, what time you get up? He goes, 7. I'm like, homie, I got 4 hours on you, bro. In 1 week, I got 24 hours. I got a full day on you. You got 6 days. I got 7. You got 7 days. I got 8. And so I quantified this 22 days that I have spent thinking. I have spent what we call now, I'm stealing this from Perry. I don't care. I'm stealing it. Calling it Renaissance time, meditation, solitude, and exploration. Okay? Dwight D. Eisenhower once said, plans are useless, but the process of planning is indispensable. You got to be hard on disciplines and soft on schedules. Same things with your plans. You got to think through things, but then be able to pivot. The only way you know how to pivot is if you have a plan. You can't pivot if you don't have a plan from the beginning. So I've been spending this time sitting in this chair at the old house that I was at in the basement, sitting there writing, thinking, praying, meditating, journaling, and I realized something. I realized that was the 20% of my day that was creating the 80% of my results. And I said, I got to do more of that. And it might feel like you're wasting time. You're not sleeping. We both know, Jerome, you sleep less than I do most of the time. But immense studies have been done. 6.5 hours is what you need.
What?
Maybe.
Well, no, I need 8. You got to have 8, Logan. If you don't have 8 to 10, then you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, until you can't have 8, right? And then you'll figure out how to do 6. Have some kids, then you'll figure out how to do 4. Okay? So, with that being said, I put that post up, man. And to date, let me check this real quick so I can put you guys up on game on LinkedIn. If you get on my LinkedIn, one of the posts that I have as my top, I don't know what they're called, featured posts. To date, we have 289 reactions, 92 comments, and 18,998 views. Okay, to put that in perspective, I have about 11,000 followers on my LinkedIn. Probably half of those maybe still use LinkedIn. I don't even know. But what happened was that went viral because that touched somebody's soul. That resonated with people. It showed them that what they're doing right now, somebody else is doing more, and they're quantifying it, and it's creating results. And so it spread like wildfire. And then my email started launching. My email inboxes, all my contact us forms on Live Free Investments, on FTW Investments, on Syndication Pro, our investor portal. It's just like, like people are like, what's this guy doing? Let me reach out to him. My LinkedIn Messenger went from, I got 20 messages that day. 8 or 10 of them were the target audience that I wanted to talk to. No matter what, they were like my ideal client, my avatar to a T. So the inbox was just going wild, man. I mean, it was going just gangbusters, people reaching out to me. And I just thought about this. I was like, okay, I post about real estate a lot. I post about investing a lot. I post about all those things, every single day. But what converted was what made somebody feel something. And when we think about the story brand that we're going to go over pretty soon, and what we talk a lot about, that is being that guide for somebody. And I think people saw me as a guide to say, man, this guy could probably pull me up if I just stick around that. And so I was like, what if I created content, a podcast that allows people to not only see somebody who's being self-aware about the process of achieving goals and things like that, but is getting stuff done, but what that process actually looks like. And that's where compression, came to fruition because I looked at my spreadsheets and what I was tracking. So, okay, the last 3 years I've done $100 million of real estate. First year, 12 million. Second year, about 40 million, right? Yeah, 35 to 40 million. This year, 67, something like that. So I eclipsed that $100 million mark, which was awesome. And I said, okay, how do Logan Freeman step his game up? I can't physically work harder, nor do I want to, just because I'm already putting in, well, let's just say from 3 to 6 every single day, 3 to 5, 12, 14-hour days, okay? Which is not, some people do more than that. That's great. But 14-hour days times 5, 15, 30, that's 60 hours, another 5 hours on Saturdays, 65, okay? I don't want to make that number bigger. I want to make what the results are bigger. I actually want to make that number smaller, And so how do I do that? Well, I got to figure out how to compress. I got to figure out how to make stuff come into fruition from being more productive, not only more effective, but more efficient. And so I started to think about some principles, and I started to do some reading, and I was like, okay, I think I figured out what needs to happen. You have to be able to understand the Pareto principle, Parkinson's law, essentialism, the one thing, the compound effect. Those 5 things, if you can make a fist out of those 5 things and compress those 5, you're going to be a force to be reckoned with. Yeah. So that's exactly what this podcast is about, is figuring out how to take all of those results that you've had in the past, do it in a way that's more joyful. That's one thing I didn't mention either, is more joyful and less stress. Right. Man, I got shingles. I just told you about this.
Right.
I'm 30 years old, going to be 31. I've already had shingles once, but that was when my dad died, and I lost 120 pounds in 6 months. So immense stress there. If you want to hear that story, go back and check out one of the previous episodes that Jerome and I did. But I got shingles because I was so stressed out about, it really wasn't about work. Work was just an added layer to that. I never let work really get that to me because I've hit rock bottom with, making money and not making money. And I know I can go back up, but it was more or less my family, the time I was spending, and the holidays paired with coronavirus really just, and I watch Wolf of Wall Street. That's like one of my favorite movies, not because Jordan Belfort is like a good person necessarily, but the real Jordan Belfort is a monster, by the way, and a monster in a good way. But I'm all to say is like, that thing that they,
Yep.
So I'm watching that and I'm like, man, my heart's just like beating, like I was wake up in the morning, my heart's just going like this. I'm starting to ask Jerome, hey man, what's your resting heart rate? Like what's your resting heart rate at? Because mine's like 97, just like, bah, 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 bah. I'm like, what is going on? So woosah. I fixed that, but then the after effects came, the shingles came. I was like, oh man, started to get vesicles all over my head. And I was like, man, I gotta figure this out. I can't work harder. I gotta relieve some stress, release tension. And it's not that I'm not aware of the tension. I call it transactional anxiety. But when transactional anxiety is there, coronavirus is there, holidays is coming, you have family to deal with. There's just a lot that's going on. I was moving through that period of time too. Just like crazy stuff. Raising capital. It was just a wild, wild, wild west over here. And so it's to do more better, but also without working harder and doing it in a way that you enjoy. And I know that sounds like having it all, but if you're intentional about it, you can figure out how to do that. Like one of the things I've been mastering is email. Like I used to be the guy that has to respond. I sent an email last night. I worked until 9:30 last night, which is not like me. I had to get some stuff done. I was responding to month-old emails, and people were responding back to me like, seems like you're behind. I said, nope, I'm prioritizing. And that person was like, oh, I mean, and he's a coach, he's a coach himself. And I said, yeah, I know I still want to reach out to you. I still want to connect, but I'm prioritizing right now. And so email was one that I had to put some boundaries on. So boundaries is another thing that we're going to be talking about. That's the ideation story. If I can boil it down, I created a piece of content. I tested out the market, asked some folks about it, and said, I think that this is going to resonate with people and is where my sweet spot's going to be. If I do one thing well next year, getting this message out to the masses will be that. So anyways, that's the story, and I'm sticking to it.
So I've got 3 or 4 different questions to ask off of that little rant of yours, and I'll try to keep them all straight. But first one we'll talk about is this concept of saying yes to one thing that makes everything else easier or unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're adding something that some people would see as extra. But I think it's going to solve it's going to eliminate a lot of things that you've been doing. No longer will you have to hop on the phone with people to give them an understanding of who you are. Mm-mm. That's going to be here. Your recaps on LinkedIn are going to be gone because it's here.
That's right.
And so I think we speed up the process in a more efficient and interactive way. Right now, people can ask specific questions about the things that they've heard in certain places. I remember it had to be 10 months ago. You said, yeah, I'm hopping on the phone with these strangers and having these introductory conversations. And I said, Logan, you're one of the best network people I know. Why on earth are you talking to somebody cold?
Mm-hmm.
Ever? And he kind of looked at me like, what do you mean? Logan, no. There's no reason for that. And so
not today's world.
I think we're creating efficiency by doing this. The other thing that happened, and this was probably 6 months ago, is you question whether or not you should continue to journal.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, I'm getting up at 3 because I got to beat Jocko up. And I'm spending this, what some people would consider an ungodly amount of time documenting my thoughts and teasing out my plans and doing these things. And you're like, isn't there another way for me to do this? And I said, no. He kind of looked at me as you do. Like, I didn't want to hear that. I wanted you to tell me that I don't have to do this anymore.
That's right.
And then you went into a really big meeting and you closed a monstrous negotiation. And I asked you what the difference was. And you said, well, I journaled, I felt prepared, and I was clear. And before he could move, if you're playing the cup game and I got to figure out where the ball is, before he could move it, I knew where the ball was going to be. That, how much is that worth?
Well, that was a 7-figure check that we closed. So that's worth a lot to our business. Probably a lot to a lot of businesses, I would imagine. But, I couldn't agree more. What I did was I tweaked it. After I learned that there was no way out, right?
Only through.
Only through. I tweaked it. And instead of adding or journaling even more, I added something enjoyable. I went back to my individualization, my learner, input, discipline, and focus talents. And I said, I need to make sure I'm hitting on one of these that I'm not. Which one am I not hitting on? Discipline, focus, yes. Individualization, yes. Achiever, yes. Learner and input, no. So what did I do? I let myself start exploring some new ideas, exploring some content. And I let go of the notion of having to read a book all the way through. I don't need to do that. There are some books you want to do that, but I like this book right here. Every single morning, usually. I didn't this morning because I worked late last night, but this No Regrets book is from a guy who's been a pastor for a long, long time. And, that guy has some great insights. So I just read 1 page a day out of that book. And then I set it down. I'm like, all right, hey, if I just keep doing that, I'm going to finish that book sometime. And then I pick up another book about my faith. Then I pick up a book about sales. Then I pick a book up about, I got Robin Dreek's book that I've been reading recently. His rapport, how to build rapport with people. I'm loving it. It's all about social behavior and all these things. So I guess the tweak that I made was I made sure that it made it fun and it didn't feel like work. I missed that part 6 months ago. Was I just felt like I was doing the same thing every single morning. You have to keep it fresh. You have to trick your mind. You have to trick yourself to thinking that you're doing something different. I'm not doing anything different. I'm just revisiting what I have been doing previously that I had forgotten about, because our minds allow us to do that. So that's been a huge benefit for me, man. It's been wonderful, and I'm excited to get up again. And that was a huge change.
So we talked a lot about us in this episode, but I think the listeners are like, okay, so I'm really just here to learn about Logan. Like, why should I care? And like, what's in this for me?
Yeah. So there is no excuse for anyone in today's world to not be able to achieve a goal.
Wait. You can't. You backed them in the corner, man. What do you mean there's no excuse? Of course there's an excuse. There's coronavirus, there's money, there's kids, there's girlfriends, there's why. I mean, there's where you started. Like, you could be poor when you start. Like, there's all kinds of excuses.
Yep. And I was all of those. I was poor when I started, cut from the NFL, lost my father, identity completely shattered, everything, had nothing. So there is no excuse, because today we have more resources at our fingertips. If you're listening to this right now, you are 95% better than most of the population out there in the world. If you live in the United States, you are in a way better position than 95% of the world. If you have Wi-Fi, if you know what Wi-Fi is, and you have one of those little supercomputers in your pocket and those earbuds in your ear that you're listening to this, you are better off. The excuses that you're making are limiting beliefs in your own mind. And I know that's hard to hear, and I'm going to lose some people right now, but so did Jesus Christ. He lost a lot of people when he told people, hey, if you don't eat my bread or eat my body and drink my blood, you will be, you're not going to make it to heaven. Whatever he said. I can't remember exactly. But he lost more than half of his followers by saying that. So I might do that right now, and that I said Jesus. But that's okay, because that's who I am. And so with that being said, today we have more resources. The books are there. The internet is there. You can be an entrepreneur from behind a computer screen, but you have to be able to stay disciplined and focus on one thing. And so why should you care? You should care because you're listening to two guys who have been broken, have been shattered, have had everything taken away from them. And we are sitting here in a better spot today, and we are going to continue to go forward. So you should care, because if you want to do that, and if you are broken and shattered and just broken and beaten down right now, then this is what you need to hear. You have to take extreme ownership first before you can do anything else. And just like I will tell people that got hit in the back of their cars, they got rear-ended. I said, man, this jackass behind me hit me in the back of my car yesterday. Made me late for my meeting, and I missed the big sale because of that. You know what Grant Cardone would tell you? Your fault. Absolutely. Why is it my fault? Why is it my fault, Logan? You decided to drive down that road at that specific time, and you decided to not give yourself enough time for being hit with a car. Okay, that's a hard pill to swallow, but that's extreme ownership. That's where you're at right now. You're probably not where you want to be. None of us really are. That's okay. But what's in it for you? Why should you care? Because we are going to show you the path. We're going to give you a code. We're going to show you the path, and then you're going to see two guys going through it. Nowhere else on the internet have I seen the ability to see into two guys that are building businesses, have families, have kids, have all these different things going on, changes in life, businesses affected by the coronaviruses, all of these things. You're going to see how we are affecting and reflecting on what's going on in our lives, using the code, using the path, and moving it forward. It's an interactive experience. I'm not sure I've seen it anywhere else. And if anybody has listened to more podcasts in the world, it has to be Jerome Myers. Every single time every single morning, he's sending me new podcast episodes that he's listened to. And it's not just real estate. It's not just, he's all over the place with these things. So I know I'm going to lose a lot of people on that, and that's okay. But maybe they'll come back because David Goggins lost me first too. And David Goggins wrote me in because he hits you with a message that's so hard up front that most of the other people that won't be able to hear what he's really saying will go bye-bye. But maybe they'll come back. And when they come back, they say, wow, I reflected and deflected on that because I was not open to that message, but that's what I needed to hear. So it might take some time. That's okay. But there is no excuses. We're going to give you a code. We're going to give you a path. We're going to keep you accountable. And you're going to get an inside view of two guys that are trying to do something really, really big. That's my answer to that.
I don't think we're trying. And the second piece of that is I think you're going to compress the time. Right?
Yeah.
Because by being an experiment, right? By having done the things you've done and had the experiences you've had, you know what doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
And
here's what I'll say too about that is you have to compress time. You have to find aggregators. You have to find aggregators. Jerome and I are aggregators. If you are not someone who's going to go consume 50 different books, podcasts, videos, and create takeaways from that, fine. That's okay. But we are. And that we are content producers, not consumers. We are going to produce. We are aggregators, meaning we're taking Jim Rohn, David Goggins, Jocko Willink, Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, you name it, Ed Milet. Who else are we taking? All these different people. We're taking all those folks. Tim Grover is another one. Perry Marshall, Gary Vaynerchuk. All of these, Tim Ferriss. I could keep going. You probably don't even know who half those people are. You probably don't even know who a third of those people are. You don't need to. You just need to know Jerome and I, because we know all of them, and we're going to put it together in a plan that allows you to compress. That's how you compress. Dude, that's how you do it. You have to find people, and we are aggregating from other aggregators, and that's where you start to really compress. Results are really based on a few different things. We're going to talk about those, but we're really focusing on is the 20% that's going to make you the 80%. And if we even dial that down, 80-20 squared, okay? The 20% of 20 is 4. Okay? The 20% of 80, the 80% of 80 is 64. So really, all you have to do is listen to 4% of what we're saying here. It's going to create you 64% more results. So with that being said, 80-20, the compound effect, you've got to keep momentum going. We're going to show you how to do that. We got the one thing. You got to get clear. Jerome mentioned this earlier. What's the one thing that if you complete and focus on, that's going to make everything else easier or unnecessary? Essentialism. What can I go big on and what can I say no on? If it's not a hell yes, then it's a no. That's essentialism, right? I mean, and then there was one more. I can't remember exactly what it was. But those are all components. And I've probably rattled off more information in this episode, which is like an intro episode that we're just going on right now, than you've probably heard your whole life. And that's okay. But it's not okay now that you've heard what I just said, because now you don't have an excuse again. There is not an excuse again. So not only is there not an excuse because it's out there, now you've heard it. I'll give you an example and tell you a story. There's going to be a lot of stories in here because Jerome and I are studying stories. Jerome texted me yesterday or the day before. It's raining outside. I think it was raining outside.
Yeah.
It was raining outside, or no, it wasn't raining outside. It was 34 degrees, and his shoes were wet from the previous day's running of running in the rain. And he had to put those wet shoes on. He said, no, I can't wear those. Those are cold and wet. So he went and got some old shoes, some old raggedy shoes that already got 2,000 miles on them. I mean, just barely could even lace them up. They're all brown and stuff, stinky. He put those shoes on. He said, all right, I got to get outside. I got to get running. He's running out there. Then what else happened? It maybe started raining on you. I can't remember exactly, but you're on the 6, you're doing the trek on the 6, and you're coming back and you text me. You're like, man, that sucked. I'm like, why? So why? This happened. My headphones died. It was raining on me. The shoes were old and raggedy. I was like running on sandals. I said, okay, but now you don't have an excuse. What can be your excuse going forward now? And he hit me with one. He said snow. And I said, bring it on. That's the last one. That's the last one you've got. So why you should care is because we are practitioners. We are sitting here. We're going to talk about it. We're going to tell stories. But this is things that are happening in our lives on a regular basis. And that's a prime example of now Jerome has backed himself into a corner. Because what else can there be? He ran with raggedy shoes in the rain. If it snows, it's just frozen rain. So who cares? You know, that's what I'm talking about. Now he doesn't have an excuse. That's why you should care. That's why you should care. And that's what this is about.
Logan, this is, I think, an amazing episode and a great way to let people know what to expect. I think the next one we'll start diving into really who this is for and really start talking about who's going to get maximum benefit from listening to this podcast. So guys, I know it happens in the post roll, but hit subscribe and just follow us on this journey and guarantee you'll be a raving fan when this is all said and done.
Thanks, Jerome. Let's jump into the brand script. Hey, compressors. If something you heard struck you, made you feel a little bit uncomfortable, good. Head on over to compressionpodcast.com. And then you can also subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast at. If you feel inclined to, please leave us a review. It's obviously helpful. But instead, I'm going to call you out today. I'm going to call you out and make sure that you do your part, sharing this message by sharing it with one person that might need to hear what we talked about today. Be great. Nothing else pays.